I am the Namer, guardian of the names of power. Before your world even existed, my people were an ancient race. Now they are gone, and only I remain, keeper of my people's history. Across the endless tracts of space have I traveled, to return to the planet of my birth, Zoidstar. Though my people perished long ago, and their cities were buried by the shifting sands, the machines remain. It is these that have brought me here to perform the last act of the Zoidarian race, the giving of the names of power. When my race was young and had an interest in the affairs of the galaxy, they built the machines, mighty engines of destruction which gave the power of life and death over the other creatures in the galaxy. The Zoidarians turned their gaze outward and laid waste to 1,000 star systems with their machines, their Zoids. But ruling a galaxy was not enough for the Zoidarians. It was not the conquests, but the battles they enjoyed. And though all intelligent life trembled in the shadow of the Zoids, my people battled on, machine against machine, Zoidarian against Zoidarian, in the further pursuit of glory. Zoidarian lives were needlessly sacrificed to the god of battle, and the race dwindled in numbers until the elders outlawed the Zoid duels. But they couldn't outlaw the Zoidarian love of combat. The Zoidarian pilots of the giant war machines were replaced by androids, and thus the heroic combat could continue without threat to Zoidarian life. Too late came the order. Too late to save a once mighty race from extinction, and now only I remain. Only I and the Zoids. And though my people created the Zoids, I have no power to control them. For the war machines have become the living embodiment of the Zoidarian thirst for combat, with lives and wills of their own. They exist only to fight, to ensure that their heroic combat lasts for all eternity. Now I stand on the sand-blasted surface of a world I used to call home, high on a rock, scanning the horizon for some sign of movement, knowing that out there, behind the sand clouds, lurk the deadliest war machines in the universe. It begins! Gorgodos leaves no friend or foe unseen. From all this side where Gorgodos hails from, black and grey steel dinosaur rule of thumb. Metallic bats might serve as radar strong. Alien Republic, Zoid army claim throne. Gorgodos, robot, Stegazoid great. Gorgodos exposes enemy hate. Gorgodos radar left on the ground. Gorgodos of the army profound. Gorgodos
Stegosaurus made of steel, they destroyed the planet Zoidstar reveal. Suited for war and conquest of the stars, Stegazoids and his kin leave galactic scars. Enslaved to Zoidarians and their goals, their Zoids seek freedom from their cruel controls. Stegazoid and my Stegosaurus, Stegazoid laser gun warfare chorus, Stegazoid mighty and strong dinosaur, Stegazoid iron and steel, lord of war. When comes freedom from Zoidarian yoke, the fall of their empire makes their race croak. Stegazoids seize destiny on Zoidstar. Now comes heroic combat near and far. Zoid will fight, Zoid for glory and control. Stegazoid steel, Stegosaurus patrol. But now come red Zoids to conquer us all. Blue Zoids unite and answer Zoidzilla's call. Stegosaur and my Stegosaurus, Stegosaur laser gun warfare chorus, Stegosaur mighty and strong dinosaur, Stegosaur iron and steel, lord of war. Stegosaur serve blue guardian army, uniting red mutants, crew and smarmy. Fearless blue Zoid infantry face them now. Stegozoids fire the laser gun Krakow. Stegosaur and my Stegosaurus, Stegosaur laser gun warfare chorus, Stegosaur mighty and strong dinosaur, Stegosaur iron and steel, lord of war. Look out, Stegosaur and my Stegosaurus, Stegosaur laser gun warfare chorus, Stegosaur mighty and strong dinosaur, Stegosaur iron and steel, lord of war.
It is the never-ending battle between red and blue Zoids. It has been waged for centuries. It rages still, with no end in sight. I, the Namer, last of the Zoidarians, guardian of the names of power, keeper of the legend of heroic combat, have spoken.